DEFCON 3. I'm KT McFarlane. Is Russia's economy on the brink? Well, one of the benefits from the recent financial market turbulence has been the continued decline in the price of oil, which is down over 20% since June alone. This is putting increased pressure on some of America's adversaries, specifically Iran, Venezuela, and Russia. So how does this decline impact Russia specifically and Vladimir Putin personally? Joining us to discuss is Robert McFarlane. He was National Security Advisor to President Ronald Reagan and the man who was behind the collapse of the Soviet Union. Thank you so much for joining us, Bud. We're honored to have you with us.
Always a pleasure, KT.
And let me ask you, what opportunities does this present? First of all, what problems does this cause for Russia if oil stays at around $80 a barrel? It's now at $82 a barrel, and some feel that it may go even lower.
Well, oil and gas revenues constitute more than 70% of the Russian budget, and consequently it makes it more difficult when oil prices drop to balance that budget and to sustain military operations, military spending, and the subversion of additional states beyond Ukraine and Eastern Europe. It's also a hit on the domestic economy, and the quality of life, as you know, in Russia has never been terrific, so it could stoke unrest at the grassroots. Also, it puts downward pressure on the currency, and the Russian ruble is not in good shape now. Finally, there's capital flight. That is, oligarchs who haven't already been sanctioned, feeling that that's just around the corner, and moving capital out of the country at a very alarming rate. So we put all this together, and life is not good for Vladimir Putin.
Well, do you think it gets to the point, if this continues, if these low oil prices continue and all the factors you're talking about, is it possible that there's some kind of a palace coup to remove him from power?
Well, it's difficult to imagine who has the courage, really, the guts to try to take him on. His security apparatus, people close to the security regime and in control of that have been very, very strong loyalists, and so that seems unlikely at this point.
Well, then does it cause a change in behavior? If you say, as you say, 75% of the Russian government budget is based on exports of oil and natural gas. Natural gas prices have dropped as well as oil prices. That leaves the Russian government with a lot less money. Do they have a rainy day fund? Do they end up going into bankruptcy? Or do they have to really significantly cut back military expenditures, subsidies, and other government expenditures?
Clearly, it puts a real squeeze on all expenditures, foreign and domestic. And it's true that the oligarchs who are being hurt by the sanctions are not going to be pleased by this. And so that cadre of his most loyal supporters up until now are going to begin to squeeze him for doing something sensible in terms of engendering a normal trade flow and so forth, and measures that will engender relief from all of these bad things that are happening. So it could augur well for Eastern Europe if he throttles back in an effort to improve his image. But it's going to take a lot of high wire walking by him to be able to get through this and continue on.
So do you think he then continues to put pressure on Ukraine, potentially put pressure on the Baltics or Moldova, or is he going to, is he going to double down, or will this cause him to rethink and maybe, back down?
I think he will rethink, and I think while sub rosa, the KGB operations at subversion in Eastern Europe, in Poland even, are going to continue, and yet they won't be at a scale that they have been up until now, and so it isn't that the game is over. It's just that it's gone a little bit more invisible, but it's going to continue because that, too, is part of his strength among these same loyalists and even the Russian grassroots. Paradoxically, as bad as the quality of life is, being a great power is a big deal to the average Russian peasant.
Mm-hmm. Well, thank you very much. I mean, that's a brilliant analysis and opens up possibilities that, a year ago, even when oil was at, $120 a barrel, we just didn't even have those options a year ago. So thanks so much for joining us. Robert McFarlane, a good friend of mine, I call him Bud McFarlane, and he was President Reagan's legendary national security advisor. That's it for DEFCON 3.